It's no secret that ICT makes learning easy.
The strides made in our field could not be possible without it.
And now we can watch our favorite show.
My radio is my best friend.
UCC provides an enabling regulatory environment and policy guidance for healthy competition. We also facilitate ease of doing business in the communications sector through licensing, standardization, spectrum management, tariff regulation, rural communication development, and consumer empowerment. An informed consumer is an empowered consumer. UCC supports local content and innovations. Driving the development of a robust communication sector in Uganda is Uganda Communications Commission.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, now it is another day that the Lord has given us. It is the 31st day of May 2021. And of course, internationally also recognized as the World No Tobacco Day. And of course, that means that we are also fast tracking towards the end of this year because we are already mid-year. Now, tomorrow will be 1st of June. Guess what? That is the month that is also celebrated in Uganda majorly and of course internationally that takes cognizance of the Uganda matters. 3rd June is the day that we have actually gotten close to. But what are the memories about 3rd June? Most recent, last year we weren't able to celebrate this day and so much was missing. Many people know 3rd June for so many things. Some will tell you the pilgrims who walk from wherever they do to conglomerate in Namugongo. Some of the people, the kind of food that is sold in Namugongo, but also the preaching and the blessings. Some people will talk about the holy water in that place. So much more to that. Now we must say we're quite anxious to see how this year's celebrations will be. Nevertheless, so much has also happened around the domain of politics, economics, society, culture, religion. But that and much is what we'll be discussing with my colleagues this morning in Good Morning Uganda. Now that is Priscilla and Robert. Good morning, Priscilla.
Good morning to you, Felix Nkunda, and good morning to you, Uganda. Welcome back from a wonderful weekend. I was well rested. I trust that you were also equally well rested. But given the fact that there was so much tension over the weekend, we had the presidential address that was on Saturday. We also had leader of opposition, from Friday to Saturday. We equally also had the parliament coming up with a budget, and so there's so much pressure. Even if we're getting into the weekends and out of the weekends, there's still so much that we are yet to expect from the highest office in the land to the 11th parliament. Then we can say that things have been settled and Uganda can now easily stride forward. However, until then, COVID-19 is becoming more real and real. Second wave conversation is a growing conversation, and we need to take care of ourselves in order to take care of each other. My name is Priscilla Nalwoga. Just reminding you, please wear your mask.
A lovely morning to you wherever you are, and thank you so much for choosing to start your week with us. This is Good Morning Uganda. I'm Robert Kirabo. Well, one thing I learned Saturday that I want to tell all Ugandans, nantabulirwa yasabaragwa bumba. So please, wherever you are, ensure you have your mask, your social distance, and of course, you have a sanitizer or regular wash of your hands. This is from touching your face. The second wave is with us here, and this is something we're going to be discussing later on in our GMU agenda with an expert from the Ministry of Health. So please keep with us till through so that we can have all the information relevant as we guide ourselves and guard ourselves against the spread of COVID-19, the killer that is with us. But we can defeat if we work together.
Now, that story that Kirabo did say is a Uganda mimic that also gives description to people who don't heed to advice. And what actually happened is that Nalwoga was a fisherman amongst his colleagues. And he kept on saying that, imagine the boat that was made out of clay. So all his friends kept on telling him, you cannot make a boat that will float made out of clay. And he said, no, I think it doesn't matter as long as my boat is beautiful. So he made a boat out of clay, and clay is basically a boomba. So when he pushed the boat into water, it simply sank with him. And that's why the Baganda say that, Oyatabulirwa anasa balagwa boomba, and the man died. So clearly the president came out to also make mention that if you don't want to heed to the advice of the ministry in terms of adhering to the SOPs and taking care of yourselves, and for those who are able to go for the vaccination, you will definitely go down with coronavirus. That is something we must also pick a leaf and interest ourselves. We don't want to get into a lockdown. You and me remember the scourge and of course the unsightliness of everything that came out of a lockdown. But nevertheless, we do believe that at least by Wednesday, the government would have come out with a position, having met, as he did promise, with whoever it is that will be part of the task force and all that. And we are waiting to hear what more direction the state shall give in terms of that. But that and more is what we will be discussing along the week. But before that, we'll be going into our local story, into our international stories.
As we get into our local stories, you can follow us on social media, on Twitter at Verified Page, and they can give you full information. And as of today, you do have a tweet from the Ministry of Health. COVID-19 vaccination will take place at Kololo Independence Grounds effective today, Monday, 31st May 2021, from Kololo Independence Grounds effective today, Monday, 31st May 2021, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So all those in the priority groups and those eligible for the second dose are advised to take note of these changes. They're going to be giving the vaccination at the Kololo Independence Grounds. So between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. certificate that was given to you so that you can get your second dose. But you can catch these live updates. They will be coming to you from our UBC page, which is at UBC TV Uganda, and you can stream live with us this morning. Walk with us the journey of a new week on a new day on UBC TV, that is for Facebook, and UBC Television Uganda for YouTube.
And just remind you, this vaccination is free of charge. It was first at Zambia Hospital, whereby 5 people already lining up. I like the zeal that the second wave has brought. By now, people are lining up to get the jabs. And they're indeed free of charge, so please go and ensure you get yourself a COVID jab. Beginning with some of the stories that were in our bulletins for the last few hours. Begin with the Kabaka of Uganda, Ronald Muwenda Mutebi, who called upon Ugandans, most of those in diaspora, to desist critics of Uganda government. Kabaka Ronald Muwenda Mutebi was speaking to Baganda at their convention through Zoom. The Kabaka Ronald Muwenda Mutebi commended the Bagandan diaspora for the love they have for their country and warned them from consuming wrong information, more so from the social media.
Former Director for Basic Education at the Ministry of Education and Sports, Nsumba Lazi, has advised schools to ensure standard operating procedures are respected to curb the spread of COVID-19. Speaking in Driwale, a Kampala suburb, Nsumba acknowledged laxity among Ugandans and admitted that if schools drop their guard, Uganda is in for a long test in its health facilities. With the new COVID-19 variant rampaging the globe, Uganda hasn't been spared. Cases are on the rise, with health facilities strained yet again. In his address to the nation on Saturday, President Museveni urged the public to maintain standard operating procedures to stay alive. Nsumba did laud institutions that have adopted modern trends like online classes for education.
It was a weekend and some had gone to enjoy themselves, however forgetting that such was illegal in the times of COVID-19. Ministry of Health, together with Kampala Capital City Authority and police, carried out a joint operation aimed at cracking down on bars and restaurants that are dealing in shisha. The operation saw many arrested and shisha pots impounded, more so in high-end bars and restaurants of Bugorobi, Chisasi, Bukoto, among others. As the country continues to struggle against COVID-19 pandemic, different stakeholders have come up with measures to curb the spread of the virus. At least 200 shisha pots were confiscated by the Ministry of Health and Kampala Capital City Authority in a police operation that lasted throughout the night. The joint operation arrested more than 50 people from different bars who were found smoking shisha in bars, yet they are supposed to be closed as a preventive measure against COVID-19 outbreak. A scuffle ensued as some people resisted the arrests. The crackdown lasted for more than 7 hours and was carried out in the areas of Bukoto, Bugorobi, Kamocha. Crackdown lasted for more than 7 hours and was carried out in the areas of Bukoto, Bugorobi, Kamocha, Kisasi, among others. The raid sought to implement the tobacco control law as the country seeks to get rid of illegal use of tobacco. According to World Health Organization, smokers are at higher risk of developing severe illnesses and death from COVID-19. Dr. Rukwata sent a warning to all those smoking in public places that the law will deal with them. KCC Environment Officer disclosed that the detained suspects will be arraigned in court today, Monday.
Away from that, Karamoja Affairs outgoing Minister Engineer John Byabagambi has asked educationists to embrace the new education curriculum of equipping learners with demand-driven skills to address the unemployment challenge. Engineer Byabagambi made the remarks at the launch of a $1 million campaign for completing a multi-purpose block of St. Mary's Chitovo in Masaka district. Equipping learners with soft and demand-driven skills has been cited as a major solution to the unemployment problem in the country following the increasing number of graduates from different institutions each year. He says many have become superstars and have improved their livelihood because of the skills they acquired, thus the need of equipping more learners with these skills. Byabagambi urges all students of St. Mary's Chitovu to support their school so that it can continue to blossom. That KCCA has done over the weekend with tobacco. It's something that they passed most recently, and they did commit that they will be having crackdowns. However, my challenge is that they can't continue these crackdowns ever so regularly, not just a one seasonal thing that every this period we shall be doing it, because when you do that, you're giving people a leeway of actually being able to do more of what you're cracking down on, especially things like tobacco, shisha, and the likes in the policy.
Rightly said, Priscilla, but also for me, I look at what we call selective enforcement. That when you look at some of these crackdowns, you find that bar one they visited, bar two they didn't. It had never happened in Machin, and I try to follow up, and they'll tell you, well, here they didn't. So we need to ensure, yes, there is continuity, but also issues of selective enforcement. Such a bar, police will never appear there. This bar, you'll find them there. So that's why you find some bars are totally closed and people are out of business, whereas the neighboring place, another bar is working. So that is why some bars are totally closed and people are out of business, whereas the neighboring place, another bar is working. So that is why I have a challenge, lack of continuity and also selective enforcement. If those two can be dealt with, then we will know that culprits will finally have to quit because of the enforcement. But Felix, we know there is so much happening on the international scene. I don't know what your view is also briefly on these police enforcements and operations, where this time out of the blue they spike and they get a few, then sometime they completely forget about that.
Well, I don't have very kind words for whoever is in charge of this enforcement. I find it a very primitive way of handling things. First and foremost, you are arresting people who are suspects. You don't have any right to put them on camera. That is very, very primitive and gullible. And as you say, the selective enforcement, I find it again primitive. And that's what we are fighting against other people. All right, because you hear this bar belongs to certain army person or this one or this kind of thing. So I'm not happy. I'm not interested. I'm amused about these all crackdowns anyway. But anyway, crossing over into our international stories, Israel coalition government a threat to national security. Now Benjamin Netanyahu came out to make this statement. Now the Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has warned that a proposed unity government would be a danger for security of the country. Now he argued right-wing politicians not to support a deal after ultra-nationalist leader, that is Naftali Bennett, said he would join talks with centrist Yair Lapid. Now Yair Lapid there has until Wednesday to form a new coalition government. If successful, it would mean that Mr. Netanyahu's time as the country's longest-serving prime minister would have come to an end. Now, who in government? If successful, it would mean that Mr. John in March, which was in the country's fourth conclusive vote after 2 years. Now back to Africa, where we'll be looking at now Ethiopia's Tigray conflict. Tens of thousands of Ethiopians did come out to attend a mass anti-US rally. Now more than 10,000 people have attended an anti-US rally in Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, to denounce President Joe Biden's policy on conflict in country's northern region of Tigray. Now Mr. Biden had called for a ceasefire in the conflict. Now it is the 7th month. At the rally, people held placards that is criticizing the US, while others applauded Russia's President Vladimir Putin and China's leader Xi Jinping. The Ethiopian government has also come under pressure over the conflict in the Tigray, and thousands of people, mostly civilians, have been killed, and at least 2 million others have been displaced due to the same. Now, the conflict began last November when Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed ordered the attack on the forces loyal to the region's former ruling party, the Tigray People's Liberation Front, after they had overrun federal army bases. Now, of course, still in Africa, we'll be looking at West Africa, where we see the ECOWAS bloc suspends Mali over coup. Now, the West African leader decided to, at an extraordinary summit on Sunday, to suspend Mali from the ECOWAS, or the that is Economic Community of West African States, bodies after a second coup in 9 months by the poor shell country's military. Now, but the same stopped short of reimposing sanctions. However, the push has sparked warnings of fresh sanctions and deep concerns over stability in the volatile shale region. Now, at least 10 regional heads of the state and 3 foreign ministers attended the summit in Ghanaian capital Accra, with former Nigerian President, that is Goodluck Jonathan, serving as the mediator in the crisis. The suspension from ECOWAS takes immediate effect until the deadline of the end of February 2022, when they are supposed to hand over to the democratically elected government. Ghana's Foreign Minister, Shile Ayoko Bochewe, said after the meeting. Now, the final declaration called for the immediate appointment of a new civilian prime minister and the formation of an inclusive government. Well, basically, that's what's happening on the international scene. Earlier, we looked at stories from Uganda, and of course, very much of that. But also, we do have a poll question for you that we want you to react to and tell us what your true sentiments are on the question that should COVID-19 immunization be made mandatory, or for that matter, compulsory. Hit our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and be able to leave your response there. Share with us your opinion, your thought, and your true mentions about our poll question. Now, we will have our song for the day. But when we come back, me and Robert and Priscilla, we will be sharing our opinions about a couple of matters that are of national concern in our segment, that is the newsroom. Good morning.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by
Ku program obulamu bwo.
was brought to you by
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Central Points when you deposit, send, and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go, MTN.
What does it mean to be closer together? It's taking the last bus home for a surprise visit. Closer together is strangers finding a connection. It's bringing home something much more than a box. It's the warmth of home, or the beginning of something new. There's magic in sharing the things that we love, because it's those things that bring us close together.
Echa COVID-19 chijja kugwa. If we get vaccinated now, observe social distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly. Together we can defeat this enemy.
Prosper with Airtel Money today. Agent application and registration is free of charge. All you need to submit as a sole proprietor business is a letter from the business owner requesting for a SIM card and the purpose of the SIM card. Certified copy of Certificate of Registration of the Business issued by URSB. Certified copy of Statement of Particulars of the Registered Business and supporting statutory declaration in verification of the particulars. Copy of Valid Trading License. Copy and supporting statutory declaration of TIN certificate issued by URA. Valid national ID for Ugandan proprietor or passport for foreign national, including a valid immigration entry permit, work permit, visa, or residence certificate. Colored passport size photograph of the proprietor and handler of the business. Proof of current physical address of the business, tenancy agreement or utility bill in the name of the proprietor or landlord, or LC1 introduction letter confirming ownership and location of the business. You will be informed of your application status within a maximum of 5 working days, still free of charge. Upon successful agent application, Airtel will provide training and customized branding material for your business location, still free of charge. To branding material for your business location, still free of charge. To register, call us today on 126 toll-free. Airtel Money. Simple, secure, borderless. Airtel is regulated by Uganda Communications Commission.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
As you prepare to leave home, in case you've not left, please ensure you have the following. Don't forget your mask because you're going to need it, but also be mindful that at least whatever you're going to do, your working environment, standard operating procedures, social distancing are a must. So don't forget your mask. Don't forget a sanitizer. In case you can afford one, please don't forget a sanitizer. Most of this will do you good. In case you need to sanitize, you need to wash your hands. In the event that you can't, liquid soap so that you prevent yourself against COVID-19. The second wave is with us and we can only prevent ourselves. Also, parents, ensure schools where your children go are safe. Statistics showed us that by Friday, 803 school-going students had contracted COVID-19. And this is in 29 schools in 17 districts in Uganda. So be mindful the safety of your children. But also just remind you, you need to boost your immune system against all kinds of diseases. And remember, hallelujah, ginger tea and hallelujah, turmeric drink have got ingredients that will help your body boost its immune system. Prevention is better than cure. A proper immune system will fight a number of diseases, and even when diseases attack you, immune system will not go to that severe end of it. Well, last week, but before we go to our today, let's first also remember we have a poll question on our various social media platforms that we want you to send in your views and your opinions. That is, should COVID-19 immunization be made mandatory or compulsory? Should COVID-19 immunization be made mandatory or compulsory? Please send in your views, your opinions on our various social media platforms, on our Twitter page, on our Facebook page. We'll be able to read them through and we'll really appreciate your contribution towards this program. Today we want to look at the opposition leadership. It all began on the 14th of January when we went for elections. Of course, we voted the president and on the same day members of parliament. We saw the president swear in and we now headed to parliament where last week it was the speakership race that was successfully taken over by the ruling party, that is both the speaker and the deputy. But the opposition, now being National Unity Platform, the majority in the 11th parliament, had to come up with the opposition leadership in parliament. Before we go any further, let Priscilla read for us who was appointed for what, and of course that will shape more our discussion this morning.
Well, good morning to you. It's a wonderful morning, a warm morning, if we can call it that, as we get to look at the leadership of opposition into the 11th parliament. We do have members that were elected as per the press that was released. Now, leader of opposition for the 11th parliament is going to be Honorable Matthias Mpuga, who is a constituency representative of Nyendo Mukungwe. You also do have opposition chief whip, and that is Honorable Nambeshe John Baptiste, and that is for the constituency of Mandia County. You also have Deputy Chief Opposition Whip, and this one is going to be Honorable Majeri That one. Chebakutika. Okay, we do have Honorable Zake Francis for Mitiana Municipality. Is going to be the Commissioner of Parliament. You do have Medad Lubega Segona, who is for Siro East. He's going to be Chairperson, Public Accounts Committee. You do have Honorable Basarirwa Asman for Vice Chairperson, Public Accounts Committee. You do have Chairperson for Kosase, and that is Honorable Joel Senyonyi for Nakawa East. Vice Chairperson Kosase will be Honorable Lucy Akelo for Amuru District Woman MP. Chairperson Government Assurances is going to be Honorable Namboze Betty for Mokono Municipality. Elected in the same positions that we're going to be looking at later on as the list is going on. But as the list is going on, Leader of Opposition, 11th Parliament, I'm pretty sure there's a conversation we had last year, and we had Honorable Segona being on that list of Leader of Opposition. versus who has been elected, and that had always been the competition between the two. But now it's official, and I wonder how Felix feels about leader of opposition elected.
Maybe also, before we go to the leader of opposition elected, let's first understand the genesis of having a parliament that has the ruling party, has the opposition. What is their role in this 11th parliament, or in parliament generally? So this will shape our discussion to know the personalities elected, will they live to perfect this role? Because we've had a couple of leaders of opposition. We had Winnie Chiza, we had Ogenga Latigo, we had the current one, Betty Aora Chan, we had Nandala Mafabi, Fulo Gutu, to mention but a few. But Felix, let's just go back to the genesis.
Well, maybe about the genesis, Robert. As we had discussed, I think, a couple of days ago, it's the spirit of this. It's in the same spirit of the notion that in the bid to foster democracy in terms of governance, you see, democracy mustn't only be spoken of times of election. It must, even in the aftermath, also be put clear in the preamble of leadership that we must see democracy even in how business is run. And this is the purpose as to why you have the opposition. You can imagine having the opposition in parliament with an opposition leader who has also more or less equal privileges like the leader of business, government business in parliament. The leader of opposition in parliament is basically, it's a technocrat of taking cognizance that there must be divergence of views, but also the same parallelness of such views must be attributed to growth in terms of transparency, good governance, and constitutionalism, basically. So it relies on that kind of trajectory. It's basically about that.
Given that background, I want us to look at, for example, this particular office, beginning with the top, that is the leader of opposition, Matthias Mpuuga. We've had a couple of them, and for each, their tenure has had a series of things we can look at. If you remember, when we had Winnie Chiza, she was more vocal, she was more assertive. Then we had, we also had Professor Ogenga Latigo, who some even were doubting, but is this really oppositive? Then we had, we also had Professor Ogenga Latigo, who some even were doubting, but is this really opposition? But he said, I'm constructive. I don't just attack anything or oppose anything. We had Nandala Mafabi, equally, he was bang, press on, more outspoken there. We had the current one. If you look at Betty Aora Chan, I remember when Parliament was celebrating 100 years, I asked her, but you seem low, cold, not seen as that vocal. But she said, Felix, the coming in of Matthias Mpuuga as the leader of opposition. We look at the personality, he's from Noop, how they have been doing their politics. What do we foresee?
How have they been doing their politics?
Because we know more of
threatening,
that of defiance,
rallying, defiance.
We shall. And even when you look at the statement, actually, one interesting thing, when they were releasing, I want to read to you. The National Unity Platform, this is a press release, there is on the 28th of May. The National Unity Platform has constantly informed the nation that it will take on leadership positions available to it and use them to advance the struggle, freedom and democracy in Uganda.
Well, first and foremost, I want to put it clear, in my opinion, that whatever Noop is advancing for is legitimate in their own cause. I don't want to cast doubt that what they are doing or their agenda is wrong. It's legitimate in their own cause. That's, for me, that I would say. Secondly, the rising to the epitome of the opposition in parliament, I think we must be clear. The leader of parliament, the leader of opposition in parliament is not the leader of opposition in the country. Those are also two different things. But the rising of Matthias Mpuuga is so significant. One in the history of Uganda and of Uganda, for those who may matter or bother to understand it that far. For so long, it has been seemingly put to tray that there's been a bit of marginalizing in terms of political activity and deployment when it came to Uganda. That and we must share in the same opinion. And in terms of sharing on a national cake. Most of the agitations, the feed came to Uganda. That and we must share this. From political activities have not been done well, mostly when you talk about Uganda. So the rising of Mpuga to such an office, for me, I think must be celebrated for Baganda, and there's nothing wrong in that. I don't want people to make it tribal or what. There's nothing wrong in that.
Well, some were saying that when we look at the leadership that was appointed by NUP, many of it is Uganda.
What's wrong with that?
They were saying how
when you look at the leadership, for example.
When you're saying that they're saying you, what is wrong with that?
No. And I also want to tell you, aren't Baganda Ugandans?
There are, but maybe
so
people
what
expected distribution in
you
terms
know,
of
if you want to take that discussion, you're going to direct me to a very, very dangerous position. I want you to go into. I want to know. Well, it's fact. It's a matter of fact. I'm not going to concoct things here. You go to the government in power today. You want me to start name calling from ministers, from appointments? Why isn't that a big deal? So I don't find a problem with the issue of NUP selecting Baganda. Bagandas are Ugandans, full stop. For me, that's all that matters. Secondly, it's in their domain. Just as you say, the president has right to choose whoever he wants, so does the party, and that's their own issue. The office of the leader of opposition is at, in Uganda we say, Mstenseni. In the center, I don't know how to directly put that Stenseni, like at junctions. It's standing in a, let's say, roundabout. Probably it has 5 different, it's standing in the middle of a direction of loyalty. NUP was overwhelmingly voted in particular areas, and the expectations are equally high. There's that direction that it has to answer or heed to the people who voted. Secondly, it is standing against another road about to prove to Ugandans that we want power, and yes, we can actually deliver. Away from now just people who voted them. It's standing at a position of consolidating in the aspect of tribal aspect, in as much as we may want to rub, but that is equally there. It is also standing in the center where there's also another road where it is battling with the castigation of foreign interference in terms of that political party vis-a-vis Ugandans. But also it is standing against another road of trying to make a statement and also establish itself. Because up till today, you may find that there is almost no original NUP member. Most of them are defectors. That is one of the biggest challenges. When you look at how some of these positions were selected, the biggest issue probably would, for me, the biggest question would be that most of the spaces, I think the biggest challenge for whoever was choosing was, who do I put where? You can imagine, Matthias Mpuga is DP until a couple of months ago, not even, I think, a couple of months ago. Now, there are also people who started People Power because that's where it started Anup and what. How do you choose between them versus? I think for me that was the big issue in terms of that. But later on, we needed someone who would steer the ship right in terms of the opposition and creating stature for a new party.
Priscilla, let's look at another challenge. NUP comes in as first it's the new opposition party, but then it is blessed to have the majority in parliament, therefore choose the head of opposition. But it comes at a time where we are seeing wars within the opposition. They may not have come out outrightly, but if we remember very well when Honorable Shemuju lost the speakership race, and he came out and castigated NUP for not supporting him, and he said there are only 15 opposition members of parliament in the 11th parliament. How best can they unify the opposition to ensure that they can move in the same direction to foster what they call the struggle for freedom and democracy?
Well, politics is politics. At the end of the day, whether you are NUP or what, you still have to play the game of politics to be able to thrive as parliament, as members belonging to different parties. And when Felix brought out the whole fact opposition in parliament that has been elected, Honorable Matthias Mpuga having formerly belonged to DP, for me, I thought that as a wise decision that was made by the election or selection committee, because they have selected someone who has a genesis, an exodus of politicking from a party position to where they are today. And so that would be guided in how he's going to conduct himself in that position that he's going to be holding in the 11th Parliament. So that is a bonus or a tick for that election committee. However, now there was strife that has been caused, even before we look at Parliament. Before, when we go back to elections, you look at some members of NUP that had actually wanted to stand for different various positions. You saw that strife that we had for Kawempe when we had this one is elected, then next morning things changed. We saw the strife that they had for who to represent them when it came to Mayor of Kampala, the ticket, and there was Nabira, there was, before Nabira, there was Mayanja, there was, you know. So, of course, as a young party, they're going to have that challenge of so much is expected out of them, and yet them as a party, they're still growing. Now, one of the things that would be to their benefactor is that they must find a way to join forces. Because now is not the time for divided opposition. Now is not the time for opposition, FDC opposition, NUP opposition, DP opposition, all these other parties. Now is the time that they have to go back to the drawing board, and that is the first task that we want to see from the leader of opposition, bringing all these party leaders on the side of opposition together and causing them to sit on the same table and draw out the alliance once again, work out the alliance once again for the next 5 years. Because if you don't work out the alliance once again for the next 5 years. Because if you don't have that alliance coming through in the beginning, you're going to find that in opposition, there will be opposition itself. And if you don't deal with that opposition by amalgamating everyone and bringing them to the same table, in the beginning, then you're going to find that there's going to be so much strife, scuffle, and scandal in between just the opposition, different parties that are in that bracket. So my take would be is that they better start now, get back to that round table that they were trying to get to even during elections, of an alliance between all these political parties. Now, you've spoken about FDC and how Honorable Nyonyintono was actually not pleased with how things turned out for him in the race. But there's always a candidate, there's always a strong candidate, there's always a stronger candidate. Now, just because you're a member of opposition does not mean that you're the strongest candidate. In that time, the opposition felt this Rebecca, and not you, which is quite understandable. You cannot surely compare yourself to Honorable Kadaga, who has been in Parliament and in the place of speakership for the last 10 years. Over yourself was, no, you're just a spokesperson for FDC, but you have not been to that caliber. So you cannot expect them.
The law is very clear that anyone elected member of Parliament qualifies to stand for the position.
Yes, but qualification, you see, even if it's graduation, there's what?
So you looked at also experience.
The ones who were invited to go to Makerere University for the 71st graduation were which class? First class, exactly.
Well, very interesting as we look at opposition in the 11th Parliament, the opposition leadership. What much can we expect from them? Felix, we've already seen them chair key committees that look at COSASE, that look for corruption, how better government, parastatals, institutions can work together. Do you expect much from these committees, more so when a couple of members could be new, their first time, and they're heading big committees? Look at Joe Senyoni. If he goes for COSASE, these are people who may not have so much of experience as far as working and handling these issues. Moreover, we've seen many times, we've had allegations from some people that these committees also at times do not do so much. But then there's also an element sometimes of corruption, bribery. What should we expect this time around?
I think the expectation should be for a better accounting institution in terms of the operations of the opposition. I know that for a fact. I am also privileged to know some individuals at the personal level, the likes of Joel, the likes of Maidad, Segona. At least I know that they are men of solid caliber, and the expectation simply also thrives above the belt. I know for a fact that character matters so much in terms of responsibility and composure. I've also learned over time that the opposition has a bigger role to play because the government represents, but rather they must also be lent or bent towards party direction and whatever, which mustn't be the case for this other team. I have faith that the guys or the team that they have put to head some of this, by the way, they are still putting more people. They have not yet put from the shadow government, which the opposition is going to do. That is Honorable Matthew Simpuga is going to choose his shadow ministers. And
that is Joe Senyonyi heading that is Kosase in Parliament. That is the picture for a viewer. There he is in things, one would say, but of course he's heading a very big committee. Very interesting when we look at the positions and how people must be able to fulfill these positions and also deliver. Yes, the opposition leadership by the National Unity Platform, it's now very clear who is heading which committee, who is taking which role. The big question is, will they make a difference? Will we see the first ever new party on the politics of Uganda, but also new in Parliament, have that dramatic change that we've been looking for in terms of accountability, organization, and unity of the opposition? When we return, we'll be looking at some of the stories in the print media. I am Felix Nkunda. I will be preparing to take you through traffic updates and mulling the weather. Good morning.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way, because we are all different, even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body, because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
What does it mean to be closer together? It's taking the last bus home for a surprise visit. Closer together is strangers finding a connection. It's bringing home something much more than a box. It's the warmth of home, or the beginning of something new. There's magic in sharing the things that we learn, because it's those things that bring us close together.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
It is a new week, a new day, and of course a fresh beginning for you as we come to the end of this month. Good morning once again. Thank you for keeping it on UBC TV. This is Good Morning Uganda. Please make it a date every weekday from 6:30 to the hour of 9 when we crown it all with sports updates. Once again, I'm Robert Kirabo Nyonyintono with my colleague Felix Nkunda, with whom you're looking at some of the stories in the dailies. I'm holding the new vision, the big headline, "My friends deserted me," says Kaihura. This is former IGP advises people to trust God and not human beings. What a headline. Then church praise for Deputy Speaker and Popol Knights. That is the new Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Nita Monk, speaking to Kampala Archdiocese Apostolic Administrator yesterday. Well, she played, actually she pledged to ensure that church land is a priority in her tenure. Also look at Avoid Kampala and Wachiso. That is the president. That was his address where he said you should not come to these particular areas because they are highly infested with COVID-19 unless it is essential. But if you can, keep away. Then there are over 200 jobs and 120 tenders inside the new vision. But I'll go to Felix with the Daily Monitor.
Now, new evidence on November city killing emerges there. Now, a forensic analysis of at least 400 videos shows, among others, that shooters of the people in Kampala Road spotted military field force officers in police uniforms and rode on the back of a 99 patrol vehicle, registration number UP5564 there. And they also show you on a couple of particular areas where such shootings were made. Now, Makerere dignitizes also land records and Christians to mark Martyrs' Day at home, and what you should know about induced labor. Now, inside the papers, COVID shutdown on pilgrims from Nyonyintono again, and new hybrid COVID variant that you should know about induced labor. Now, inside the papers, COVID shutdown on pilgrims from Nyonyintono again, and new hybrid COVID variant detected in Vietnam there, but also from the Yakaivzia, a fort of Uganda railway enforcement team that is in a scuff of railway lines. Okay, now today in history, the Boer War ends in South Africa, and also Benjamin Netanyahu elected Prime Minister of Israel, that is in 1996.
In the new vision, know your member of parliament. Today we look at Abdallah Chiwanuka, who is Mokono North member of parliament. We have Santa Okot, that is Arua North member of parliament. COVID-19, the second wave is here, and here are some of the updates. New cases confirmed, 700 cases new. Then death, we have one death that was registered. Total deaths so far, Uganda has registered 362 cases. Also, there is information here that we are currently in the second wave of COVID-19, and currently Uganda is facing 5 COVID-19 variants that include the first found in India, South Africa, and Britain. The number of cases is increasing daily, and the ICU's units are full to capacity. So please don't forget to carry a mask and a sanitizer as you move around and do business. Today in history, it was on this date, the 31st of May, the year 1991, when Kakoza accepted to head the Muslims. That is Sheikh Hassan Rajab Kakoza was re-elected Mufti of Uganda by the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council General Assembly, which met in Kampala on the 18th of May. Still, we look at on this very date, the 31st, the year 1961, when South Africa became a republic. That is, the country became fully Soviet nation with the British Empire in 1934, following enactment of the Statutes of Union Act.
Now in sports, the Daily Monitor, no raise in sports funding, says NCS. Now also Isabi Driwale is fatigued but to finish off Pro Line there. But UEFA Champions League, now Chelsea leaves Man City dazed. Now of course in more sports there, Sun Cranes draw lessons from AFCON Beach Soccer King, that is Senegal, and 2019 futsal champs Yik misplay off. Now that is Kabasweka, Kasime send early warning to Singleton there, and of course Chebet surprises with 5,000 meters in Olympic ticket there, and Stadion redeems with win over Witherhead.
In the new vision sports, we have Chelsea in glory. That is a headline for you, and uncertainty looming large over funding. Let's use priorities. That is, they remind you 54 days to go to the Olympics, and of course, how prepared are we? There is a picture that is of the National Council for Sports leadership there, and the Uganda Olympics Committee President Donald Rukware sit there with some of the members, and that is where they look at the issue of prioritizing what best, who to take, who to leave, so that we do better when it comes to the Olympics. But remember, Priscilla is getting ready to take you through the traffic updates. There are so many roads under construction. I don't know, Felix, if you've noticed, yesterday I was going to Wachiso, and almost at every 2 kilometers you'll find a road being graded, there's so much construction. But what happens is the discipline of Ugandans as they drive. No one wants to wait for the other. It's only until the traffic officer has to be there, tell you, you stop, let them pass. And you wonder, why really this traffic officer has to be there, tell you, you stop, let them pass. And you wonder, why really this intolerance on our roads? That is one thing that I really wonder.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Probably Priscilla should be able to give us reasons into that.
Okay, so for traffic updates and the questions that you're asking yourself, the new roads that are under construction right now and people's recklessness on the road. I think it's just Ugandans being big-headed and thinking that, no, I have a big car, just put up the window and I can fly over that. But unfortunately, what they don't put into consideration is that their own vehicles are actually being, you know, challenged in terms of mechanics. When you do that kind of speed on a road that is still being worked on, you are affecting your engine power, you are affecting your fuel, you are affecting your plugs and all these things. And then after that, a week later, you will be going to the mechanic and saying, I'm hearing a vibration in my vehicle and things like that. So that is the challenge with that. Now, speaking of roads that are, so that is the challenge under construction, and I passed there and it looks like it's at least 50% done. We'll be waiting for the executive director of KCCA to launch it anytime later this year. So we're going to be moving from Natete into Nalukolongo, where that new construction is taking place, and see how it looks like in terms of traffic. And then thereafter we'll get into Kabusu, get into Rubaga, and see how that causes us to end up in the main part of Kampala. Now, as you can see, we are in Natete at the traffic lights this morning, and the traffic lights do carry jam just onto the traffic lights from either side. People coming in from Busega, you have people coming in from Mutundwe and the likes. You also have people trying to connect to Wakaliga route and into Natete, Nalukolongo. At the traffic lights, you would expect that there is a lot of jam because vehicles are waiting their turn to be able to get onto their next destination. But a sneak peek away from the main junction there is where you get to see the real actual interpretation of jam on a Monday morning. As you can see, for vehicles coming in from Busega, you do have just a little orange line in between there where you do have Centenary Bank, and that's the Natete branch, and that's because of commuter taxis that they do have stopping stages in between there. But away from that, it actually seems to be a clear route from Busega. Equally, traffic to Busega is clear heading onwards. Then you do have traffic that is coming in from Mutundwe backside. It's also a clear route to and from traffic. Let's have a sneak peek at Wakaliga Road. Wakaliga Road also does not have much jam. The orange zone there that you see is really a fuel station and also commuter taxis, but the rest of Wakaliga into Lubiri Secondary School is actually also a clear route, which brings us back to the traffic lights and heading to Nalukolongo. Now, between Nalukolongo and Natete, you do have construction that has been taking place here at the Nalukolongo ice plant. There's a bit of an orange zone there, but that's commuter taxis. Also, people use this as a back entry into Nalukolongo Road in case there is traffic or construction that is happening on the Wankulukuku Road. Now, in this particular zone where you do have Wankulukuku Road connecting to Kabusu and also this connection to Nalukolongo, this is where the construction is taking place, and it is about 50%. At least they have put some layers of tarmac, which shows that anytime soon they should be completing and doing final touches on the road. Now, construction stretches all the way into Wankulukuku Road, and so far been using it most recently, and it's actually a better road to use now. Before, there were trucks and there was management team that would manage the traffic, causing a lot of traffic in this area. But as you can see of this morning, you do have green zones both on Wankulukuku Road and Nalukolongo, and getting into Kabusu around Total. And consideration is that this is a trade route from the western part of Uganda, and so it brings in trade from Barara, for Kavale, from Masaka into the heart of the city. Equally, it's a trade route out of Kampala into those different parts of western Uganda. Now, away from that, we then get into Kabusu, get to the Kabusu roundabout. You don't have much traffic jam, an orange zone, something probably has happened there. Also, presence of a commuter taxi stage does show you why you do have an orange zone there, but on this other side there are clear routes. You can use either this route to get to Rubaga Road and get into Rubaga, or you can use Kabusu into Nabunya Road to get into Rubaga. Either of those roads is going to bring you to a cross junction that usually also has another jam that usually picks up, and you can see orange zones for traffic that is coming in from Rubaga trying to connect to Nabunya Road, and equally traffic that is coming in from the Rubaga residential areas or the hospital or the cathedral and are trying to connect into Rubaga. But that's how it looks like. Now this leads us to the roundabout that we have at Rubaga. This is the Rubaga roundabout. It does connect you to Kabaka and Jagala Road and connects you to Mengo. Now a sneak peek into Mengo. This morning there's so many red zones in Mengo that we are seeing around BBS. You do have Zake Road that is having an orange zone for traffic that is trying to connect to Mengo without accessing the trading center. Now that shows you that there is heavy flow of traffic on the trading center. Equally, when you look at all these other routes, traffic is coming in from Wakaliga Road and trying to connect to Kabaka and Jagala Road, and still it's finding the orange into red zones, meaning that for now it's not an actually accessible area because of the so many red zones in the trading center in Mengo. Commuter taxis measure the heavy traffic that actually has to access town through that route. Now away from that access, it shows you that from the trading center in Mengo, going past Victoria's Primary School, then you go past Namirembe Cathedral and back to Bakuli, where you do have the traffic lights. Equally, red zones, most especially for the junction at that leads you to Namirembe Cathedral. This is where you do have lots of red zones right now, and I suppose that that is because there's some people that are trying to come through from Willis Road or Chadondo Road and trying to connect to Mengo, avoiding what is the traffic in Bakuli. So these are back routes from Bakuli, and they get people into Rubaga or even Mengo. But the red zones show you that equally that would not be the best choice for you to pass this morning. Getting onto Bakuli, where you do have Namirembe Road getting into downtown Kampala, there's also orange zones that are building up slowly but surely, and commuter taxis, it's a new week, new day. Everyone is trying to get into the heart of the city faster than usual, which explains why you do have an orange zone in there. When you get to look at Gaddafi Mosque, you get to see that also some orange zones that are around Gaddafi Mosque area code, the Bakuli bus terminal, that are also bringing in traffic jam for Old Kampala. You do have Gaddafi Road stretching all the way to Namayimba Bus Park. You do have Jineri Road that is then going to bring you into Kampala Road. Now Jineri Road has some potholes, by the way. The potholes on Jineri Road, you first wait for one person to go and then take a breather and pray that your car does not get scratched while you are using Jineri Road to access Mukwano Mall route and be able to get onto Kampala Road. But you can see that the red zone here is because of potholes, nothing else. After the potholes, you see that the routes are actually clear on Jineri Road. Equally, even for traffic that is coming in from Nawaimba Bus Park, you do also have orange zones because of the potholes. Now, this junction here in particular, I think it's a small river that has created itself there. So KCCA, do please be mindful and help us deal with those potholes sooner than later. Away from that, you get to look at downtown Kampala for obvious reasons. It's trading day, market day, and traders are getting goods in and out of the city. Now, this route does take us to Kampala Road or Bombo Road from the other side, and only that interaction there is where you do have the orange zone, especially for traffic that is coming in from Kampala Road and probably trying to access Chagwe Road, which is this route here. That is where you do have the orange zones. Otherwise, from the rest of Bombo Road, you do have clear routes this morning, and they don't have any challenges, as we can see. You do have past Novik Hospital, past Bombo Road, the petrol stations there, leading into Wandega is then when you start to see a little bit of traffic jam there. But then you come back into the heart of the city and realize that there's so many red zones within the heart of the city because of the different places becoming commuter taxi stop areas for now to drop off people at this time. Around the city square, you would expect the traffic is heavy on either side of the routes because they're both major route entrance into business for today, Monday, the 31st day of May 2021. But that's enough of traffic. Now, we get to have a conversation about climate weather. Over the weekend, we saw two companies, brewery companies, coming together and planting thousands of trees. Why? Because they're trying to manage the climate around their factories to be able to deal with the conversation of gases that we were talking about last week. Good morning to you, Molen.
Yes, good morning, Priscilla.
How are you?
I am fine. The weekend was quite fine.
Oh,
yes.
do tell. How was your weekend?
It was mostly work, unfortunately. Oh,
right?
Yeah, it doesn't stop. So it was mostly work, but still good.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
So reforestation should be another conversation we should be expecting in regards to weather and climate change. How can we ensure or force forward this conversation of reforestation, and to whom should we actually be tabling such conversations?
Yes, I'm happy that you talked of the two companies that came up to actually plant trees, because I feel like this is still also an individual initiative. If you see such companies coming up and they carry out such a campaign, then it also goes to reflect that most of us could actually take on such responsibility. It doesn't have to be, you know, only the companies that can afford to do that, but most Ugandans can afford to do that, and also as a call to all the rest of the companies that feel like this is something they could do. It is an open campaign and everyone could join in, plant that tree, and that could save our planet, really.
Okay.
Yes.
Speaking of saving the planet, we also have to save ourselves from COVID-19. The SOPs have been loud and clear, but there's a poll question that we have this morning, and it's very simple and basic. What is your opinion about the vaccination being made compulsory or mandatory? Now, you can go onto our social media platforms on Twitter at UBCTV Uganda and be able to give us your response there. But I would like to take your 2 cents on it, Molen.
Personally, I think as a community, as the whole of Uganda, everyone who really wants to see this country in a stable state, this is a very good initiative that the country has taken to put the vaccination process out there and to have everyone be able to actually come in. But still, at the same time, I feel like it is an individual decision, and making it mandatory is still going to be hard and the challenge, because it is a decision that you take individually. However, it is something very good. I personally have taken my first jab and I will be going in today for the next jab. So I think it is something that Ugandans should look at and actually love. Yes.
Okay, so in relation to COVID-19, it was rumored some time back that one of the reasons why you had countries like the UK, Italy and the likes having so many cases, USA having so many cases, most especially around particular periods of November, December, January, is because of the climate. It was snowing, it was a winter season for them, and that definitely increased the number of cases that were for active cases of COVID-19, equally leading to as many number of deaths for the same reason. Is there a relationship between the weather, climate and COVID-19?
Yes, that is a good question, actually, because ever since the COVID-19 came up, climate scientists have actually tried to get a relationship with COVID-19 and the evolving weather patterns and climate patterns. However, there is just only one relationship I can talk about in terms of air pollution. Now, the fact that the countries that are highly polluted, you'll find that there is a lot of dust in the atmosphere. So even then, we're talking about flu and cough. So that means already that poses a challenge to the immunity of people living in polluted areas. So you will find that mostly, if we compare it in terms of how the weather is like, in being like Uganda and the tropics were in a dry climate, but those how the weather is like, in being like Uganda and the tropics were in a dry climate, but those mostly people in the northern hemisphere having winter. Still, it doesn't eliminate the fact that COVID-19 will still pose a challenge to both regions, except, like I mentioned, in areas that are highly polluted. But also something good came out of COVID-19, I can tell you. When we saw, especially the first phases, when we saw a lock on transportation air transportation. So there are a lot of climate scientists that were secretly happy about that, because we talk about all this travel increasing to the fumes in the atmosphere, also some of the industries that were closed. So that means there was a reduction in the production process.
You know, the science says for every action, there's an that's why it's selfish of the scientists. But
not selfish. If you talk about reducing the amount of a reduction in the amount of carbon dioxide gas that was coming up in the global, on a global scale in the time that we had the COVID-19 compared to what we were dealing with before that. So there was good news, but mostly there has not been a confirmed relationship.
So I would have to have an expectation of those very scientists that any time now we should be hearing a resolution from them, a solution to those green gases that you're talking about that are emulated in terms of, you know, what happens in the airspace. But coming back to ground space, we have had most especially an example of the president of Uganda. Every meeting that he has had, every engagement he has had to have, he's been holding it in open air spaces. What is the relation with COVID-19?
If you look at really what the president is trying to lead the country into, is just creating that awareness that the country should really be aware and take the SOPs very seriously. Because look, this is something that we are all dealing with. And I will quote what the president said, it is here to stay. And we must learn how to actually coexist. Because if we do not follow up with what the guidelines are saying and what we are all supposed to do, follow the SOPs, it's going to be a threat to the country individually and also as a country leader. He comes up more often to talk about these things. So I think it's a good initiative that he's doing.
Allow me to put you in a hot seat.
Yeah.
If you owned a school, a primary school, would you then have classes done outdoors in consideration of the SOP of social distancing and the fact that fresh air can clear out such a virus?
Depending on what again, I will refer it back to what Ministry of Health is telling us to do. So if I had a primary school and the guidelines are saying, look, you can actually extend your space by doing such and such, make sure that students are actually spaced this way in accordance with the guidelines, and there is a possibility to have classes outside, I think it is something that should be considered, except that then that will pose a challenge to parents, and people would be like, that is taking us way back. But look, COVID-19 is here. So if that can actually save the time for students to still be in school and study, regardless of the situation of how they're actually sitting, I think it's a good thing.
It's a food for thought for every Ugandan. If the president has done it, Parliament of Uganda is doing it, why can't you actually adopt it?
Would you do that, Priscilla? Would you do that?
Move your entities to outdoor spaces. Hydro coming through on Good Morning Uganda agenda with Robert Kirabo. They're going to be discussing the second wave of COVID-19 and what Uganda should actually be doing in order to manage that. And from a doctor's perspective, what the strains are and how we can be able to deal with them, given the fact that we have limitations in vaccination. So look out for that at the top of the hour. Molen, please do continue.
Yes, good morning again to you out there, our viewer, and I hope you've had a good weekend. Now, talking of weekend, as we were heading towards the weekend, we did have a press release of our seasonal forecast, that is June to September rainy season across the whole of East Africa region. That is also taking in the Greater Horn of Africa region. Now, we had this press release following a convention of Prediction and Application Center, that is the ICPAC, from the Greater Horn of Africa Climate Change Outlook Forum, which was the 58th one. That is GACO 58. Now, this is a body that comes up with, that teams up with climate scientists, the national meteorological organizations, hydrological organizations, and also other stakeholders to make sure that we get a regional forecast. Now, what you're seeing, what we have on the map is actually the rainfall that is expected for June to September season, and that is literally over the whole of the Greater Horn of Africa, but we'll see mostly on what is predicted for Uganda. Now, the rainfall probability actually shows most parts of the country will have reduced rainy activities, except for the Karamoja region, where there is going to be more rainfall. Now, if I can take you through what we have on the colors, we do have that orange, where you see that deep orange color. Those are the areas that are actually expected to have more pickup in wet weather conditions for the season of June to September. Now, we do have mostly the ones where you're seeing the green is also according to what is shown. The ones where you're seeing the green is also according to what is shown up on the colors. It is showing that there is going to be rainfall, but not as much as what is expected over other areas. And that is one of the maps that actually came up during this season's forecast that was looking at the Greater Horn of Africa. Now, we did have another interesting one about the onset. So when do we expect these rains to actually come up? Now, much of what is expected, I can tell you, we do have much of the country having that late onset, but an early onset is predicted mostly across still the Karamoja region and northern Uganda. Those are the areas that will be having rains coming for June, rains coming for June and also into July. And we also have August as well as September. But much of the country, especially the southern sector, we are expecting those rains to come in late July, but still they will be small compared to what we will have over northern Uganda as well as the Karamoja region. Now, one other important thing to note is that the Karamoja region and northern Uganda, like you see this area around here that is in that light green and also that deep green, that is the start of the rainy season over this area. And we've always had this season for the northern sector. So as June sets in, then we'll be looking at most of these rains coming in. And I can tell you, this is the time, if you're over there trying to look at this season for farming, this is the time you actually start preparing your gardens. This is the time you start restocking your farm inputs and actually making sure that when the season sets in and the rains stabilize, you are ready to go. Now, because that will be an early onset, especially for that region. Now, also here, we look at the onset. Looking at this actually means the areas that will have a little bit of late rains compared to what we've had in the past. When you look at the map of Uganda, that much area that is covered in red and also to orange, that is where we have the anomaly. That is where we have rains setting in a little bit late compared to what we've had in the past for this season. And also where you see the white and green, that is still across the Karamoja region and northern Uganda. The predictions are showing that we do have that rain that will be coming in early for that reason, also setting in that June to September rainy season across the country. Now, also to look at this, it means that much of the country will be dealing with mostly dry conditions. So it also comes down to the people in these areas, especially for the southern sector, like I mentioned earlier. This is the time you also think about more practices that can ensure that even when you're doing cropping, farming, you do have to benefit still in the season. I'm talking about mostly like irrigation practice. So this season is going to be likely having less rainfall in the southern sector. So over there, for you over there, do consider having also to carry out irrigation practices that will ensure that you don't really run out of water. Now, also looking at the probability still that the prediction is giving across the region, the whole of East Africa region, Greater Horn of Africa, but coming back home here to Uganda, also you can see that there is that correlation, that relationship on what we are expecting across the region from different models that have been used to create this prediction. Still, look at Western Uganda there and also much of the southern sector, including the Choga region actually. These are the areas that we have previously been having rains actually since March to May. This has been a major rainy season over this area, also taking in parts of northwestern Uganda, that is Arua, and most areas there, Nebi. We have been having those rains over that area, but now we are looking at a reduction, and these areas marked in that deep purple color, we'll be looking at mostly reduced wet weather conditions. But look at Karamoja there, northern Uganda, also extending partly to eastern Uganda. That is where we do expect rainfall to come in according to some of these models that were brought up. Now, at the same time, we do take a look at what we're expecting for this season. I'm talking about June to September rainfall season. Is there more temperature possibilities that we're expecting across the country? We do have numbers up to normal. We do have numbers above normal. We do have numbers below normal. Now, usually this is where the conversation starts in on what is considered to be normal and what is above normal and what is still below normal. Now, I'll explain to you what is normal. Maybe that brings in a picture of what will be above normal. Because there are days like here in Kampala, you feel like, yes, it is really hot and you feel like it is a dry spell and you find that people start complaining, or it is hot here and there. So those are days that we do expect temperatures to be quite above normal. I think we did have that kind of heat wave when we had dry spells earlier before the March to May rainy season actually started. So that is what is considered normal. But let's come back to what is being predicted now for June to September. You do have a warmer than normal in most of the regions in the A zone, and I'll show you what the A zone is actually, where you see mostly remaining white throughout the country. That is what we have for temperatures being about normal actually. We'll find that much of Uganda is actually predicted to maintain those normal conditions. Only you see like part of Kenya, that coastal part of Kenya where there is that orange to yellow zone. Those will be areas associated with quite above normal temperatures. There will be quite hot conditions over there. Also to Tanzania, you look at that area across coastal Tanzania as well, that will be expecting mostly temperatures to be above normal. But lucky for us here in Uganda, most areas will be really within the normal range. Although we do have a few areas, especially east of the Kyoga region, that are likely to be having slightly above normal, above normal temperatures across the region. And also for the rainfall probability still, now this is a general forecast for the June to September rainfall season. That is for mostly the northern sector as well as the Karamoja region. And across the whole region entirely, there is actually much more possibility for us to be having those rainfall for the Karamoja cluster. Now, what we're calling the Karamoja cluster takes in our Karamoja region here in northeastern Uganda, but also for northwestern Kenya and also part of southern Sudan. Now, this area is likely to have more rainfall, and now this area is known for mostly rearing cattle. So this is actually a good time. This is a good season for this part of the Karamoja cluster, because now we take a look at harvesting more water for the animals and also practice farming. Although there has been little practice in farming compared to rearing cattle in this area, but still a season like this where we have more rainfall expected across the region is actually a good one for you to practice in farming compared to rearing cattle in this area. But still, a season like this where we have more rainfall expected across the region is actually a good one for you to plant crops, especially like right now. Like I said, it is time to start preparing that garden, to also start putting that input, but also the short growing crops, because now as the rains start to come in, these pick up easily, and it is a perfect thing to start with when you look at most of these rains. But take a look at the Lake Victoria Basin here, and still I'm talking about Kampala as well inclusive. We do have Jinja, we do have Entebbe, Wakiso, parts of Masaka as well, that is the western part of Lake Victoria Basin. Still, you can see that green, where we mean that there is going to be some rainfall still. And much of that is usually locally influenced by Lake Victoria. The area is also usually influenced by the effect of mountains there, and also provides in more rainfall in the forecast compared to other regions within the southern sector. So yes, we will have that reduced rainfall probability across the southern sector, but areas that are likely to benefit starting mostly June and July, as we go to September, will be the areas around Lake Victoria and also across Mount Elgon, talking about areas of Mbale, as well as looking at most areas within that eastern side. And by that, that's what, when we look at actually much of the areas that won't be having most of these rains, like mostly, especially across central areas within the Lake Choga region. We can also look at reduced wet weather conditions, and that is what the forecast is giving us. So we'll take a look at more of that in detail, the advisories for different areas, when you can actually sense. Let's come back and take a look at the weather that we're expecting for today. Now, looking at what we have across our satellites, we do have that rain system that started in earlier today, and that was across Midwestern Uganda, across Hoima, parts of Ntoroko, Fort Portal. We did start off with that rainy system that is now starting to move away, mostly across the western part of the country. You can see this system that is right here. Now, much of the rains are actually moving towards Congo, but this is the system that was embedded over here, and that was bringing us mostly rainy conditions. When you look at the rest of the country, actually right now, we are having mostly those cloudy conditions. Take a look at the southern sector, starting from even Kampala here, we're having mostly cloudy conditions. We did have that sun setting, but still the clouds are starting to develop, and there is this rainy system that is developing from Lake Victoria that is starting to actually open up and broaden across the area. Still, it is bringing rainy conditions, especially to the islands here. I'm sure it's actually going to be. We also have parts of western Lake Victoria Basin. Now, looking at much of what we have for our forecast today, like I mentioned, the central Lake Victoria Basin will have that rain coming in later, but we do have temperatures at 25 degrees Celsius. And most areas will have intervals of sunny, cloudy conditions, but that rain will come in as the system continues to develop. We do have a forecast for southwestern Uganda, where we have Mbarara, Ibanda, we have Bushenyi and Rubirizi, where we are forecasting mostly a sunny morning. We will have that cloud also coming through at a nice 27 degrees. Actually, that is kind of warm for that area. Now, we also have sunny intervals for Luwero. We do have mostly a day of 28. That is a warm morning across that area. We will see the cloud coming through, but mostly a sunny morning for that area. Now, moving further from our forecast, we do have more areas, especially for Soroti, Katakwi. That is the eastern part of the country, where we're likely to have quite a sunny morning there at 28. That will definitely feel warm, but still it is going to be warming up as the day goes on. Now, we do have the Mount Elgon Highland, where we have Mbale, Bududa. It is going to be mostly intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions, a mix of sun and clouds across that area at a beautiful 26 degrees. The western part of Lake Victoria, that is where we have Masaka, that rainy system that is also starting to develop over there, that will be bringing us rains across a few areas, but at a beautiful 26 degrees over there. Now, also the eastern side of Lake Victoria, we do have Tororo, Jinja, where we are forecasting a mix of clouds and sun still, and temperatures will be going up to 27 degrees centigrade. Now, this morning we do have a forecast for central northern Uganda. A pretty sunny morning over there. Look at temperatures starting to rise up at 29. That is like daytime highs here in Kampala. So that must really feel warm for this morning across Gulu and the rest of central northern Uganda. Well, that is all we've had for you this morning from our forecast. Thank you very much for being with us. We do have Good Morning Agenda coming up. Do stick around, and also we're still looking at your opinions concerning our poll that we have for you over social media. Do follow us at our social media handles, and also we're streaming live. My name is Molin Kenyana, wishing you a good morning again.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by
Tulantende ku program obulamu bwo.
was brought to you by...
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Central Points when you deposit, send and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go, MTN.
May voluntarily use e-freeze to issue an e-receipt to take advantage of the benefits of e-freeze, including reliable record keeping, quick process of tax claims or refunds, fair tax price assessments, among others.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
What does it mean to be closer together? It's taking the last bus home for a surprise visit. Closer together is strangers finding a connection. It's bringing home something much more than a box. It's the warmth of home, or the beginning of something new. There's magic in sharing the things that we learn, because it's those things that bring us close together.
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Central Points when you deposit, send and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go, MTN.
Kapo, you seem to be in a hurry. Where are you going to?
I'm gonna pay URA visit.
But you can access URA online. Why pay a visit?
To know more about the Kakasa Business Solutions, namely digital tracking solution, the voluntary disclosure program and electronic fiscal receipting and invoicing solution, which have turned my business around.
You're going to?
I'm gonna pay URA visit.
But you can access URA online. Why pay a visit?
To know more about the Kakasa Business Solutions, namely digital tracking solution, the voluntary disclosure program and electronic fiscal receipting and invoicing solution, which have turned my business around. You know I need to be on top of my game to protect my empire. If you know, you know.
I too need to know what Kapo knows.
Kakasa, be sure you are in charge of your business. Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
Has anyone seen Bob?
Over here!
How did you get in there?
With my Airtel Money MasterCard.
But you don't even have a bank account.
Well, it's not a card, it's virtual, so no plastic, and it's safer.
But what are you doing there?
I want to buy Nancy a birthday gift, book my flight tickets, renew my Big Click subscription, and order a shipment.
The Airtel Money MasterCard. It's not a card, but works just like one. Get one on the Airtel Money menu on your phone.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning once again, and it is always our joy and pleasure knowing that you're watching UBC TV, where we inspire Uganda. Thank you so much for beginning your day with us and keeping it on UBC TV. Once again, I'm Kirabo, Nyonyintono. Welcome to Good Morning Agenda, where we look at issues of national concern. It was on the 21st of March, the year 2020, when Uganda first registered her first COVID-19 case, where we thought by closure of the year we will be done and dusted with this. However, currently as we speak, we are in the second wave of COVID-19 that our country is going through of this pandemic. So much has been said. Some people have become complacent. Others are like, we survived the first wave. How different is the second wave? We shall still survive. However, soaps are something we have abandoned. With me today to discuss and better understand the second wave is the Assistant Commissioner, Health Service, in charge of vaccines and immunization, but is also the Program Manager, UNEPI, which is Uganda National Expanded Program on Immunization. That is Dr.Alfred Driwale. Doctor, you're most welcome.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for keeping time and, of course, sparing time for us and the nation at large.
It's my pleasure.
Well, Doctor, to begin with, when we talk about the second wave is here with, they made it through. Let's understand, throw more light about the second wave of COVID-19 so that a person knows what is likely to befall us in case we do not pull up our socks.
Thank you, Kirabo. The word wave may be quickly understood by people who live in Sese Islands. The waves, just as you see them in a lake, the water waves come and then they go down when there's wind. So the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic occurrence comes in waves, which means there is a point where it is rising, new cases are rising, and there's a point where it reduces. There's another point where it rises, then where it goes down. So probably from the word go, we were not very clear in explaining to the public that waves are coming and waves should be expected. But from the technical side, we knew that this is not a one-off event. This is a pandemic which is going to occur in waves, and we were in the first wave, and all our efforts were meant to flatten the curve, to flatten each wave. If a wave is very small, you can manage that. But if the wave is high, it also has a different implication. So the first wave we had started with the identification of the first cases. And the wave was rising slowly from March, when we found the first case. The wave could not peak because of the measures which we took. So we kept the wave flat, it could not rise. So the month of March, April, May, June, the curve was flat. There was no wave to talk about as such. But when people started getting fatigued and the measures started being lifted for understandable reasons, then we started seeing numbers of cases rising. And from August, the numbers rose steadily up to December. Now, that was our first wave rising. Then from December up to January and Feb, March, the numbers of cases went down. So that was Uganda's first wave. Because of the drastic measures government took and the compliance of the public to the measures which were the 30 measures government took, and the compliance of it eventually, yes.
Came out, that is on the 19th of March?
Exactly.
Yes, and gave...
Those measures, people complied with them, and it helped us to keep the wave flat. Now, when it moved, it started rising up when those measures started being lifted. So it reached a peak up to December. And for other factors, understood and others not well understood, and also in the nature of the virus, the numbers started going down up to January. That was Uganda's first wave. When Uganda had this first wave, the wave was small. But our neighbors, who were not having the same measures as us, had 3 waves within that same period before the end of the year. 2 clear waves. So they had the first wave, it died. The second wave, it died. Now where we are going into our second wave, they're in their third wave.
That is Kenya?
Kenya is also having 2 waves. And its wave seems to be getting a funny shape. It's not dying out. So now, this kind of situation, Uganda was an island. It only had one wave. Now we are moving into our second wave, which means the numbers are beginning to rise. And this should worry us.
Talk about numbers beginning to rise, Doctor. You've given us the first wave.
First wave.
That we would see cases, yes, they were increasing,
yes,
but not at the pace where you have 700 new cases.
Perfect.
You know, it took us about 3 months to reach to about maybe 100 cases.
Yes.
This time it's taken us less than 2 weeks.
No, the numbers which we have gotten in this wave in 2 weeks is what we got in 4 months.
In 4 months.
In the first wave. So what does it mean? It means this wave is stronger. Our brothers who live on the lake know what I'm talking about now. The wave is stronger because the rate of increase of numbers is very, very rapid. I can give you figures. We could not count numbers using daily because they were too few. In 1 week in January, we would see 150 cases. This extended to 200 up to the month of March, April. 2 weeks ago, in 1 week, we could see only 475. But we have dropped the count per week. Now we are counting per day. And our daily numbers are higher than what we used to count per week, because 4 days ago we had reached 500. 3 days ago we reached 700. 2 days ago we reached 600, and partial counts for today were over 530. So if these are our daily rates, this means the numbers have increased. The projection of our wave is likely to be higher, which means more people are going to be infected, more people are going to die, and more, which means more importantly, as you see the numbers increasing, most of the people who are being tested and confirmed are people who have symptoms. People who present themselves as alerts. You say, I'm not feeling okay, can you test me? These are the numbers we are talking about, most of them. Followed by those who have been contacts of those who were found positive. You see the point? Now, we should not forget the basic facts about this disease. 80% of infected people have no signs and symptoms.
They are simply asymptomatic.
They are asymptomatic. So if you are infected with COVID and you have no symptoms, you have no initiative to go and test. So what it means is that what we are seeing as this could only be about 20%. The remaining 80% are without symptoms, and they're in the market, they're in the taxis, they're in restaurants, they're in bars, they're in funerals, they're in disco places, they're in churches.
Vectors.
They are therefore going to be like vectors, and that is how this disease is adapted to survive, and is adapted to survive, and it is adapted to increase.
Doctor, also more light on the second wave. What makes it more lethal, more in numbers? Are we having variants? Is it mutation? Throw more light for Uganda to better understand that, yes, this is more dangerous and these are the reasons why I should look at everybody as a potential person to spread or transfer COVID to me.
So I think it is important to say that I don't want to make it scientific. The reality is we slackened on the measures. We slackened on the measures of social distancing, hand washing, wearing a mask, and sanitizing social. Those measures which are core. When you see churches being closed, it is an extension of social distancing. When you see there are restrictions on schools, That is an extension of social distancing. So what we are seeing as a driver for this second wave, number one is complacency. Number two, people who are found positive, they are expected to do home isolation. But you find someone who is in home isolation, the next day you hear, where are you? Oh, I'm stuck in a jam. You were supposed to be in a home isolation, you're in a jam. Where were you? So the attitude, the irresponsible attitude of people who are found to be positive, not taking care of the public interest, throw themselves there, they hide their identity instead of remaining at home. So they continue spreading. Should we isolate all of them? What is the capacity we have? So it comes with other challenges. The third one, we also see the return to mass gatherings. Parties are back, churches are back, schools are back, and so on. And about schools, I should also be very clear here. We are seeing clusters of numbers of children getting infected in schools. And not only that, we're also seeing the unethical behavior of people where you find there is a case in a school, you keep quiet.
Because they fear that maybe if they report such cases, the ministry will then come out and close that school.
It's not about the ministry, it's about the people, it's about them. It's about us. It's about our children.
The business factor there.
It's about, yes. So
the brand of the
so
school.
that is greed. You see, we cannot live in this country without drawing the line between right and wrong.
Actually, by Friday, statistics were showing from the Ministry of Health. I remember what you put up. I was following. I'm one of people follow your Twitter handles.
Yes.
It was 803.
Yes.
People had tested positive in education institutions in Uganda.
There you are.
And like doctor, you said, remember, these are people who develop symptoms or there are contacts. That means that there are more sick people actually that have COVID-19 in education institutions compared. And I loved one institution, but I think we'll come to that later.
Yes.
That made it compulsory.
Exactly. And there are also people who come out and say, for us, we must test our school. There are those who say, if you do not vaccinate, don't come to teach in my school.
If you're a teacher, you must get vaccinated. If you don't, please, you'll only return when COVID is over in Uganda.
Precisely. And also, you see, schools were opened with the conditions. One of the conditions was strict adherence of SOPs at the institutional level and parenting the children in such a way that there is compliance, and instituting a surveillance system where a teacher will be like a village health team to report unusual health events to the local health authority, so that the children can be, samples can be picked from them without getting large numbers of infections. So it means not only Ministry of Education, I think we are ill prepared to live in the new environment of COVID-19. And when you celebrate success, that's when it comes back. So I think people were already celebrating the first wave. And the complacency has now invited the second wave, which second wave is more aggressive. You can imagine in the last 3 weeks or so, we have lost 20 people. Because in the last 3 weeks, our figures have been, we have been talking about 342. But 2 days ago, we were talking of 362. So these are numbers which have name. But also, these are numbers which die under our care. Take note, if there are unexplained deaths of old people in your villages, that is a pointer to a suspicious event, because everybody knows how many people die in their community. you may have 2-3 years, one old person dies. 1, 2, you need to know that there's something unusual, and that should feed into our surveillance
Doctor,
system.
the second wave, we've also seen a number of cases. We knew that people with comorbidities, we knew there were people, the elderly, that were more of victims to this. How have we gotten to this change? Because the young think and feel their immune system is enough to fight this off.
Even in the earlier outbreak, we still had young people who died. From the death rate, deaths were from 20 upwards. Now, what is clear is that the numbers, absolute numbers of young people between 20 and 40 is soaring. Yeah? But we are still going to do an analysis to understand it better, because this is a fact that more young people are now in severe forms, critical, and dying. But we'll need to analyze whether this is, we would want to analyze the influence of our population structure on what we are seeing. But indeed, this is a new feature we are seeing, and it only goes to emphasize the fact that no age group is safe. So even if we talk about older persons being at higher risk, it does not mean it does not infect young people. It infects young people. Actually, a study done, our seroprevalence study, is showing that exposure, therefore infection, is the same for all age groups. This is the ongoing seroprevalence survey which we're doing. So it is the same. So the only thing is the ability of the different age groups to withstand the course of the disease, whether they remain asymptomatic, whether they have severe disease, or they die. So this is an area which our epidemiologists are looking at. We'll come back with more concrete things, but the observation is true that we are concerned about the numbers of younger people between 20 and 40 who are on our critical care beds.
Doctor, you're the Assistant Commissioner of Health Services in charge of vaccination and immunization. And also you're the program manager, that is Uganda National Expanded Program on Immunization. Now, when we talk about COVID-19, evidence has it, and the President alluded to this, when he said all measures put in place have been ignored. And he told us that once we have the vaccine in place, 1,000 doses in our country, but it seems the rate at which people are getting immunized is either too slow or they're not adhering to this, they're not getting enough information. Why is the challenge?
Most of the challenges for accessing COVID-19 vaccines are internal. And their internal health system challenges which we are fixing. We will not delve into that. We are fixing it, and we are also seeing constant, progressive increase in numbers of people turning up for the vaccines.
I've just received information that people are flooding.
So people turning up for the vaccines.
I've just received
yes.
Up
to Thursday. Going to take up to Thursday.
Up to Thursday. So please, the ground is an open place. Just go and get vaccinated. If you received your first jab, go for the second jab. Be as early as possible. I was shocked to get a message that by 6,
yes,
people are full to capacity.
Yes, and as I passed there, that's what I saw. So you see, progressively we're fixing the internal health system issues in order to deliver the vaccines better and more efficiently. But what is very striking for those who are hooked on misinformation about the vaccines is that in the earlier parts of from the start of vaccination exercise, we were having about 40,000 people vaccinated per week. Today, the week we have ended on a note of 80,000 in a week. So the vaccines we have are going to be consumed. No doubt about that. the issue of refusal to vaccine, we passed that milestone. The healthcare workers are out in the field exhausting the doses they are having. And those who are moving very slow, we are going to retrieve and redistribute. That's not even our first line of action because it is not popular with the local leaders. And now they are engaging their district teams to vaccinate. All we want is the vaccine should be used before we get to the expiry dates of the vaccines.
Which I'm library informed that is 10th July?
Yeah, 10th July. But I can assure you, by 10th July, this is the picture of the uptake of the vaccines. We're on course to exhaust all the doses which we have, and the retrieval will be in very limited circumstances. And the districts have created additional teams. And in Kampala, for example, we have created over 20 teams in Kololo to be vaccinating at different service points. And that will take us to over 2,000 or 4,000 cases, people to be vaccinated in a day. And KCCA and their teams could not join us there because they have also resolved to open more service points for the Wananchi so that we exhaust these vaccines.
Let me get this clear from you, Doctor. Is a national ID mandatory for someone to be vaccinated for COVID-19?
Yes, it is mandatory. But if you do not have, someone can introduce you. All we need is clear identification. Look, this is a vaccine which we give 2 doses. So how shall we identify you to put your record where the first dose was? Kirabos may be many, unless you are Driwale, who are few. But if you type the name Kirabo, you may find there are so many Kirabos who may even have but your ID is unique to you. So it helps us to trace that and put your second dose to your name. And you see, these cards which we are giving are cards to help the vaccinator. But the ultimate certificate for vaccines will be auto-generated based on completion of your doses. And those who think they are smarter and they are forging those cards, we will ashame them. And we will get you, and I think police have charges for forgery. That is a different story. So we are going to have an auto-generated, system-generated certificate for immunization, and we are working on the details to make it very comprehensive and to speak to other identities.
Well, we had our poll question this morning. I don't know if my producer can still bring that on, my director. That was, should COVID-19 immunization be made mandatory or compulsory? Doctor, I need your view on this.
Very mandatory. You know, the approach of Uganda in doing things. Mandatory more to talk to the people and educate people so that they have more resolve to do things based on understanding. That's why we are here on this talk show all the time, on radio, print. For us, when you educate people, they are more empowered. They make more responsible decisions. Now, whether the COVID-19 vaccine should be mandatory, at the moment, no. Why? Because the vaccines which we are using in this epidemic are vaccines which are called, they are used under emergency use listing. It is an admittance that yes, the vaccine works, yes, it is safe, yes, it produces the results. We still have things which we may not know about it. It's an honest disclosure. And an honest disclosure. And it requires that, you see, there is a consent. People have been asking, why do you consent? Medical practice actually requires consenting. In other countries, if a doctor comes to touch your tummy without explaining to you, it's an assault. So in standard medical practice, you consent. Whether you put it down or whether you explain it, that's a different matter.
We are only known to that in terms of surgery. Someone's going to theater.
Yes.
And the next of kin, you consent.
Yes. What is the objective? The consenting we are seeking from is what is called informed consent. That's why there is an open disclosure of the possible side effects which are expected, and you are taken through them, so that when you understand this, at the end of the day, they say these side effects are not, they resolve on their own, but the benefit of this vaccine outweighs these side effects. And then you make an informed, not saying you must go there. But there are also vaccines whose benefits, side effects are all known and they're safe. Those kinds of vaccines which are registered and approved by WHO for use, not under emergency use now, they are registered. Those ones fit into our immunization law, which makes immunization mandatory.
Well, Doctor, I want to thank you so much. Time is not so much on our side. We must give space for Ruben Mpima Kasera Chibram to come and take us to sports updates. But as we wind up, I want to get your final word on this. We know the National Task Force is yet to meet on Wednesday, and then they will come up with the do's and don'ts. But what is your advice? Having seen that actually Ugandans we seem to have failed. I mean, they're going to lock us. But I asked him that, okay, you guys were craving openness, gives you mask. He didn't have them. Discussed with a friend who is a trader. We are worried. We are going to go back into a lockdown. I asked, but where is the soap? Where is the mask? And these things were not there. So from the medical bit of it, you're not politicians. What would be your recommendations? Lockdown?
Yes. You see, as I've said in this talk show before, if I was in a laboratory, and this disease is approaching the way it does, I would have locked. But down is the right thing to do. But we are not about lockdown. We are not about thing to do. But we are not about lockdown. We are not about laboratories. There are other considerations which must be put in, and the National Task Force is in a better position to decide on whether lockdown or lockdown. But if it was a laboratory situation, but there are other things which would come undesirable associated with that. But the people need to understand this. India's situation of the pandemic is a disaster. And disasters arise when a hazard, the jam, when a hazard meets with a risky behavior and meets with the vulnerability and meets with the lack of capacity. So if risky behavior is not checked, we cannot negate the impact of this disaster.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Dr.Alfred Driwale, who is the Assistant Commissioner Health Services in Dr.Alfred Driwale, who is the Assistant Commissioner Health Services in charge of vaccination and immunization, but also the Program Manager, Uganda National Expanded Program on Immunization for having phone time. Nantabulirirwa yasabala gwa bumba. Have a lovely day. Please take care. COVID is around and we are in the second wave. Good morning. Let me hand over to Ruben to take you through sports updates.